Okay, I think that is it. I think we are now live. Hi guys. Let's wait and see. Yes, that's it. We're live. Right, hold on. Let me move back. Get my cup of tea. Hope people can still hear us. I'm going to try and get it up on my phone so that if people want to ask us questions, they can, which will be quite exciting. Yay! Mostly, I wanted to do this so that we could have opportunities that if people want to talk to us and ask questions or discuss any of the seminars, that would be an opportunity to do that. Because actually, the downs. I mean, there are many upsides to being online, but as in you can do it in your pajamas at home. But the downside is that people can't gather and meet and chat.
Yeah.
So, actually. So thank you for coming around, being in my garden. This is particularly nice. Oh, we should say who we are.
Yes. So I am Ashleigh, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys. It'd be really cool to just use this opportunity to engage with you and see what you guys liked about this morning.
And I'm Sarah, and I'm part of the team that kind of put today together. I'd say it's been really lovely watching it all come online, because I feel like the team have been planning this since December. I think we had our first meeting about it after last year's conference, and then in March we were like, oh no, we're going to have to start moving this online. And so to actually be together and have people watching it and have people enjoying it, and it's been so lovely to kind of see on social media or get messages from people going, oh, I've been watching it and I've been really enjoying it. So actually that's really lovely.
I guess it's hard when you're putting things like this online, you can't really see it's different to putting it out there to an audience where you're getting an audience to engage with you and there's audience participation, and here you just have to rely on social media and the hits and seeing who's there. And so it's good that you guys could tune in to watch.
And I think as well we had some feedback last year about kind of what seminars people might want to see, and we had a whole program of what we wanted to do, and then a few of them we felt like we needed to change, because actually we want them to be ones that could have in-person discussion, so we had to change some of those things. And also figuring out how to do the worship, which was incredible. Oh my goodness, I loved it.
It was good. I was watching it driving home from my weightlifting class on my little bike. So I had YouTube and the phone in my basket, and the worship was going, and I was cycling.
That sounds super safe.
That is how dedicated I was to tuning into the worship.
I think it was lovely to see a band again. The fact that we can start to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, the tech people have done the most incredible job. Becca is joining us. So Becca is the key to making sure that we can get everything online, and so she's participating. We've got quite a few people joining us, so welcome everybody.
Hi guys, excited to see you and have you here.
Very nice to feel like we're not alone, but we did kind of deliberately go, okay, if we have two of us, even if we just end up having the two of us hanging out, then that's fine. I'd be really interested to know what seminars people have watched, if any, and kind of what people's questions or takeaways were. We managed to pack all three in back to back, which
we hit it large.
Pretty impressive. Had it hooked up to the TV and watched it. So, what was your takeaway?
So the first one we watched was Becca's seminar on busyness and time management, and those ones are always hilarious for me to listen to, because do you know what? It's every time I have been presented with a book. So lots of people in this seminar, in all the three seminars, have mentioned John Mark Comer, and he is a big love of mine and Becca's, so it's kind of obvious that she was going to use that. But I remember when somebody gave me, or if someone told me, I want you to read The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I was like, that is not for me right now. I don't need to read that, and I pushed it. And actually, Kath, our pastor many moons ago bought me a book on rest. And I was like, yeah, I'll park that and I'll read it as and when I need to.
I haven't got time to...
I haven't got time to... That's not for me right now. And then I get to these stages in my life where I take on so much. I'm a really passionate person. I love to be engaged. I love to do, especially with my work that I was doing overseas. And then I get to this point where I burn myself out so much. I get so ill. I get stressed. I get resentful. And it's then that I pick up the books. And I wish that I would reinstall those bits of information before I got to that point of no return, you know. And so I have been engaging in that book during lockdown, and it literally changed my life. Well, I hope it's changed my life. I hope I live by those principles. And now we're coming out of lockdown. Now we're starting to get back to some form of normality. I think it's gonna, like, the things that were sown during that season, I'm hoping that I'm gonna reap it during this time now, you know.
And I think this was one of the things we talked about when looking at kind of the keynote talk and the seminars, was about some of these things may not be things that are new topics, but hopefully we can see things in a new way. I've just been seeing that people are chatting about Ben Doolan's talk about Jairus' daughter and the woman who was bleeding, and kind of the comparison between the two and getting a new perspective on it. And I think actually his talk was incredible. We are so grateful that Ben came on board to do that, and kind of show, because he's on the national Me Wine team and he kind of oversees 80s to 30s stuff for them, and so that was ace that he was up for kind of bringing a message. And I know we really kind of thought and prayed about what that was about, breaking down barriers. And I think actually the thing about these conferences is you want to hear something new, don't you? You want to kind of, and I've read books about time management and busyness, but watching Becca's seminar, I was hit afresh of, like, quite convicting. I think I was kind of like, oh, I need to.
For me, I think it's I know what God's calling me to. I know the priorities He's asking me to put into my life, and He's asking me at the moment to set down to pick up. And I really have to understand, okay, what is it that he's calling me to? Are these things that I'm putting in my life, are they hindering that, or are they helping that? And I actually just bought a book called How to Break Up with Your Phone. I've not started reading it yet.
She says with her phone in her hand.
And I'd really recommend picking this up. I think it's like there's like a thing every day for a month, talking about a new thing to do to get rid of your phone, because I know, especially because I do a lot of work from my phone, I'm quite active on social media with my blog, I am always on it, but then when I'm not doing those pieces of work, I need to set that phone down and be a lot more intentional about doing it, otherwise I just get distracted, I get anxious with my phone, and it just sets like a wrong precedent for the day, so that's really important for me.
PJ talked in his seminar about habits, and kind of, you know, he talked a bit about idolatry as well, and tech and phones, because I was really challenged by that, but actually also about why I pick up my phone, and sometimes it's a habit. I don't think about it, and actually why is my habit to pick up my phone and not my Bible? Or why is my habit to pick up my phone and text a friend and not chat to Jesus?
See, then I put the Bible app on my phone thinking that was going to count it, and it doesn't work. I'll just scroll through the Bible app, and then it's just mindless. You're not actually like taking in any information, or just like numbing your brain to it, you know.
And the thing is, in this like kind of COVID world, there are so many things that are having to be done online, and I'm not saying there aren't amazing resources. You know, some of the podcasts or live streams, Instagram, like, it's become such a rich place for scripture and knowledge and wisdom, but we need to be careful about the boundaries for that, I think. And I was very kind of conscious of that this morning with both Becca and PJ's seminar.
And I think especially I was finding that during lockdown, obviously, if I looked at my screen time during lockdown to normal,
mine
it shot
loads.
And of course, that's the case, and like we needed to do that in order to feel connected with people. And I don't think that's the problem. I think that like the problem comes where God, I feel quite convicted that the Lord's saying to me, like, Ashleigh, this is all very well and good, but I need you to take time to process with me all those things. So set that down and leave space for me. Because if you're constantly taking in, you do not give me any space to guide you and to give you wisdom through that. You know?
Yeah, and that's so important.
Yeah, for sure.
We did also watch Phil and Hannah's seminar on community, which was
Did?
ace. I think it was so good to hear some just really good real life examples of where community can work and not work, and why that's important, and why it's important for your community to not be like a sheltered bubble, but to be really
outward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure you've got different people
Yeah.
in it. And I think in this time of COVID, actually having a community and how you build that and who's in that
Yeah.
is hugely important. And how you're going to meet those people.
Yeah. I think community, I'm such a relational person, and if I don't have community, I go crazy. And I think I've moved around quite a lot, so before I moved overseas, to Thailand, for some of you that don't know, but before that I had to do some training in Birmingham. I was only going to be there for 4 months, but within that space of time I established a church, I had a home group, and I went to a gym, and my friends were like, what are you, why? You're only here for 6 months. And if I don't have that, then I lose my accountability. I really struggle to think outside of my work, so I have to take myself out of that and make sure that I've got people to love me outside of what I'm spending most of my time in. So that is, no matter where I go in the world, if I'm in a place for a week or 5 years, I have to establish people, because otherwise it just makes me feel quite lonely, as it were.
And if you want to hear more about Ash's testimony, in the afternoon reflection, which is at 1 on YouTube, there's a chance to hear about how God has been breaking down barriers in your life.
Yes.
And to have some quiet reflection time as well with some worship, which is great. Andrew was just saying about in Phil and Hannah's seminar, where Hannah talked about the tall guy with all the tattoos and the Mohican worshiping next to the tiny nun in her habit.
Yeah.
Actually, I was such a distinct contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that unifies us as different people in different walks of life and different communities is Jesus.
Yeah. When a real beautiful example of that I've seen is when I was in Thailand. I worked in the middle of the red light district, and we would put on worship nights. And in a single worship night, we would have missionaries who were there, but we would also have homeless women who were in prostitution. They would come in. We would have homeless men come off the street, and it was this. And then we would have women who were trafficked from Africa, various different people in that one room. If you looked around, it would be quite shocking to some people, but it was the most beautiful depiction of what I see heaven to be like. With all its beautiful colours and creeds and backgrounds, and no one in that moment looked at each other with judgment. It was just love, and I think, that's so beautiful,
We're having a bit of a discussion in the comments about how people manage to engage with God during lockdown, what's helped people. So it's talking about worship music. So Anna said worship music whilst washing up and cooking dinner, reminding her that God was and is bigger than lockdown.
Yeah.
For me, I have felt very blessed that our live group has been able to keep going.
Yeah.
Via Zoom every Monday night. And for me, having that group to do Bible study with has been really important. And I've loved having church live stuff. Do you know what? When we have to go back to church, not in my pyjamas with a coffee in my hand, I'm going to find it really difficult. I roll out of bed at 10:25, make myself a coffee, crawl onto the sofa. Heather, bless her heart, normally you've got it all set up ready.
Adorable.
How am I going to do church again?
I came to live group in my onesie. My pink leopard print onesie, and I had no shame, just freshly out the shower. I feel like that's going to be acceptable going back though.
Yeah.
Especially if it's your house, you're not going to judge me.
Becca said about listening to podcasts and engaging with communities on Twitter, reading books, and worship music as well. And actually, social media has been has a double-edged sword to it, I think. But finding a community in that, I love that. I've got an incredible group on Twitter of Christian teachers. And I think particularly with lockdown and reopening of schools and everything, to have a group of people in the same work situation was so key for me. Becca votes that we do a pyjama week at church. I'm down. I am so down. I need to get Keith on board. She points out I always come to life group in my onesie. In fairness, I have turned up in my pyjamas at their house before for life group.
I love it.
Jace is normally in pyjamas when I turn up at their house.
Can you imagine Keith coming in pyjamas?
Can you imagine Keith coming in pyjamas? You didn't say that loud enough.
That would be the best.
I mean, I think if we get him on board for a pyjama week at church, it's only right. Do you think Keith owns a onesie?
I reckon he does.
If not, that's a Christmas present in the bag.
Keith in a onesie. We might need to stop and change the subject.
Do you know what though? I think the fact that I turn up to life group sometimes in my onesie, part of that is that I'm very comfortable, and I think you have to be in a group where you are comfortable and can be yourself and can be authentic and honest. Sneak preview, by the way, our current plan for the Resonate Conference next year is hopefully to look at authenticity.
All about that.
So
I think it's so important because I've known of some people who have been part of life groups, Bible study groups, whatever you want to call them, and they say, everyone will go around, how are you? Fine. And that really breaks my heart because...
Or busy.
And I'm like, no, this group isn't about keeping up appearances. This isn't coming about pretending we're all holy. We need to come with our worst and our best, and we need to get down in the trenches with each other, especially during a time like this, to say, actually, I feel pretty rubbish. I just need you. I need you just to love me. I need you just to listen. Or I just need to just be a part of this and not speak. And that's, I don't know, I think that's a really beautiful thing, especially about our life group in particular.
Yeah. That's a really good point about social media, making sure that we've learned at this time that we need to have proactive communication, checking in with each other, truly making sure we're alright, not just masking it off. And I think that's really true as well, particularly in social media. Like you said, and you can, I think, social media, you can present much like a life group, and I'm fine or everything's great. Filter. And actually, we need to be able to be honest with each other, which can be harder to do on things like Zoom. It's easier for someone to sort of stay quiet and not.
And it's hard for me because if someone expresses to me, I'm really struggling, I want to reach out and I want to hug them, and that is physical touch is how I show someone I love them. And I've had to really think about, okay, if I can't, that is my main love language, what other ways can I show people I love them and show people I care? So I know for us, we have a really solid friendship where we'll send little cards or gifts, and that has been such a blessing, just to know I love you, I'm thinking of you,
affection in a different kind of way. And I think actually those small gestures make a big difference, don't they? Whether that's checking in with somebody, making a phone call. Nessa, one of our curate this week, phoned, I had to kind of check in ahead of the conference to kind of and I just think that in itself, it didn't take her 2 minutes to make a phone call, although I missed her call, so that's a bit rude of me. But that makes a big difference. So it's going, I'm thinking of you. And I think actually reaching out and making sure that people, and actually usually it's the people who aren't speaking up, people who aren't vocal, the people who are are coming to a life group or to church with their camera and their thing switched off, and you kind of go, are you okay? And it is hard. Some people find it hard to be on Zoom, but Oh, I love that. Andrew's just said she's been praying over the phone with friends when one of us has been in the trenches, and there's been tears, snot, genuine God connection. And I think, praying for someone over the phone or over video has become that was something I really had to get past. Somehow it felt different being not being in person, but actually it is so powerful then.
And it does, obviously, it says in the Bible, actually God really keeps reminding me of this recently, when two or more gather in my name, then there is power. I'm not very good at quoting that, but if you are struggling, like just reaching out to a couple of people, being like, I really need your help, I really need you to pray. Like the power that is in that. Yes, there's power when one person prays, but when 2 or more people gather, there's just something really like gorgeous about that. You know, and knowing that like the Holy Spirit is like there, and like He's ready to listen, and I don't know. I just find that really beautiful, and something that I think we need to get more. I really struggle to say, can you pray for me? Because I sometimes think I don't want to inconvenience. Their problems are more like I don't want to, you know, make out that what I'm struggling with is any worse, and actually we need to get past that and just be honest and bring people with us along on the journey.
Heather's asked a very good question. Some people on this chat, but also I know watching it outside of the 18s to 30s age bracket, and kind of what would we want them to know about our generation and what can they do to best support us. And I think, Joe, I was going to say,
I have a thing.
I am really grateful. When we organised this conference last year, I had a bunch of people in our church who were slightly beyond the 18s to 30s age bracket, who were kind of going, oh, I wish we could come. And some of them I ended up roping in to do things like refreshments and premiering stuff so that they could come. But actually, them being online, I've gone, yeah, sign up and like join us, and you know, that kind of thing. And but actually, hopefully, it's an opportunity. And the thing is, we've done this so that we can tackle topics that are maybe relevant to our generation, and some of that is about, I think, between kind of 18s to 30s, there's a lot of life transitions that happen, whether that's school, university, jobs. And it's usually things first jobs, first relationships, marriage, children, and hopefully there's someone in that age bracket that is just one step ahead of you or has been where you are. And I think that is kind of what makes it quite special. But it means that some of these things that we're sort of discovering for the first time about where is our security, or how do we manage balancing work and family, how do we build community. Particularly, I think, you know, we're quite rare in being in our hometowns with our families around. Actually, a lot of people have moved, and such. How do you build community when your family aren't in the same place? And actually, I think being able to do that and to talk about some of those subjects is why we created the conference. So hopefully, part of it is that maybe people can see some of the things that we are struggling with. What were you going to say?
I think, how do I say this in the nicest way?
Just say it however you want.
I'll preface it by saying that I really appreciate being around people who are older than me. I've made it a really intentional thing to surround myself with people who are more experienced than me, who are wiser than me. Especially, I like to be around married couples, just because I really like to see a model of like beautiful intimacy done well. Even though no couple is perfect, for me that is really, really important for me to see for my growth, because it's something that I've struggled with and wasn't necessarily modelled when I was younger. And so that's really important to me. And God has really blessed me by putting people around me to speak life into me who are slightly ahead of their faith journey. What I really struggle with is when people who are above the millennial generation look down at millennials and say, oh, millennials, like, you don't know how good you've got it, you're all spoiled brats, you're entitled, yada yada. And that really bothers me, and I get really upset, because yes, we are not perfect, but we also learnt from imperfect people. And I think like we all need to respect other people's generation. You know, it's not right for me to look up at my granddad and be like, oh, you just don't get it, because, you know, like, I need to respect the differences between him and me. But there is no use going around and saying, like, criticising our generation because we might not have got it so perfectly right, when we're all just learning. And this is all we know. We're trying to do the very best we can with what we've been given.
And I think we have, each of those countries will have different challenges, but also different things that make them...
We bring strengths.
And I think, you know, I was talking to someone the other day about secondary school, and they were like, oh, I wish I could go back. I was like, are you joking? You could not pay me to be a teenager again right now. I think it's so hard in the age of social media to be a teenager.
There is no way.
And so I think actually to look at, and I look at my parents' generation, and I look at the fact that they are going to have to keep working a lot longer than they thought they were going to have to, and they're finding what their life looks like as like, I hate this word, but like empty nesters, which is a ridiculous phrase because I'm always at my parents' house. Their nest is not empty.
I'm a boomerang.
Yeah,
like coming back.
You can try and get rid of me, but nope. And I just think actually that that generation has got a challenge in kind of having to find work and life and identity when their children have grown up, but they're not entering a retirement routine. And I just I think actually that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I think like I don't know, I believe like if I guess we might learn about this later on in another seminar, but I guess like when generations come together, when millennials come with Gen Ys, Gen Zs, or whatever they're called, and the older generation, and we work together and we appreciate each other's strengths and our weaknesses, like just think what can be done for the kingdom of God. At the moment, like we've got a lot of our generation, the millennials were definitely seen as the activism generation. We're always fighting for something, and I think that's really, really powerful. And I think there could be something to be taught in the other generations, but I think maybe the way we go about it sometimes we can learn from, and I just think like if we come together with all of our like differences and we respect and love one another for all those differences, we can create something really, really powerful, and I think that's amazing.
There's a real thoughtfulness I found with some of the older generations about thinking before you act. I think we're an acting, kind of a gung-ho generation. There's definitely something to be learned in
taking a step back.
And in those spiritual disciplines and in serving. I have to say, I've talked about this, with people before about, I think particularly sort of a retired generation, but even my parents' generation, there's it was ingrained in them, I think, that you serve in church, you serve on something. It's not a consumerist thing that you come and consume church and then go away and don't give back. And I think actually for us as our generation, that wasn't as instilled. We go back to this busyness thing. I'm too busy. It's actually what are you making your priority? What is it that you are doing? And actually, my dad did an incredible talk in an evening service, I think it was like last year, about tithing, and that we talk a lot about the principle being tithing 10% of your money. What about tithing 10% of your time for Jesus?
Woo!
And that might be in church, it might be caring for a relative, but like kind of how do we do that? And I think that is something that older generations do naturally, we don't do as naturally. And I think, so there's a lot to be learned, but equally, I think we have a lot to teach as well. And the other thing is about not assuming, like I said, there's so many different transition points from the 18s to 30s, not assuming that people are hitting certain points at certain times. And I think, like you and I will both say that as single people, single childless people, that actually a lot of our friends are married, having kids. There's no timeline on these things. They're not achievement points to be hit in faith. And actually I think we're very fortunate in our church that that's not something that's generally felt, but I think actually and actually faith isn't linear. You don't get on a time on like a conveyor belt and you hit certain points and tick things off on your way to heaven. No, like I feel like I'm forever learning.
100%.
I feel like I often would go, when I was like in my teen years, early, like into like kind of 18s, early 20s, I would go to something like New Wine and I'd have a breakthrough revelation and I'd go, I've got it. I'd learn it. I've achieved Christianity.
Then it all comes crashing down.
And then, like a year later, I would have a similar breakthrough and I'd go, I can't believe last year I thought I had it. This year I've definitely got it. And actually the realisation that I'm never going to get it.
Yeah.
And actually nothing that we do in terms of life achievements or life goals or milestones is going to achieve faith.
Yeah.
Actually, we're always learning, and I learnt that most from older generations.
Yeah.
From then going, actually I'm 80 and I'm still broken.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning, and I still need God's grace.
And the vulnerability in that is really beautiful, and I think that's a very attractive quality. No matter what age you are in, if you can stand up and say, I do not have this, I have no idea where I'm going or what God is doing, but I humble myself to that, that's a really attractive quality to have no matter what age you are.
I completely agree. I'm going to start wrapping it up because we've been doing this for half an hour, Ash, did you know?
Time flies when you're having fun!
I know! And I want people to have a chance to grab a cup of tea or coffee or some lunch before your afternoon reflection at 1. So that's very important.
Cool. Yes, so also just in case, I've had a couple of people ask me if they're not tuning into this, how can they get involved with the conference outside of today?
So thankfully, YouTube videos are going to be up, just ongoing, basically.
Perfect.
So they are sort of going live, as in they're appearing throughout the day, just because we want it to be like a programme. But they will then stay there. So I've had a couple of people kind of say, I didn't want to sign up because I'm not actually around on Saturday the 5th. And I was like, no, sign up anyway, because, then they got the programme. But also I was like, it's then going to be, do it a different day, or watch it afterwards. So yeah, they're all going to be there, thankfully, ongoing.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
And also remind us what is coming up later.
Right, so we've got afternoon reflection at 1 o'clock, which is led by Adam, and with your testimony and some time to just sit and reflect with some quiet worship music, and done by a couple of our kind of young people students, some really beautiful songs with some images to kind of look at. You might take time to do that. And then at 2 o'clock, the 3 afternoon seminars will go up onto YouTube, which are intergenerational ministry, which is a wonderful kind of Zoom chat interview that Becca did with Ian MacDonald, who's kind of head of youth stuff for the Oxford Diocese, and John Earwick, who heads up the Old People Ministry at our church. There's also Church in Today's World with David Hancock, who's done that, which is brilliant. The kind of the theology in it is just incredible. And then the third one, I'm going to forget, and that's going to be awful, isn't it? Oh my gosh, I feel like I've been so...
Failure!
Look at that, I failed to remember. Handling Failure, which is with Jace and Tim, who are part of our Resonate team, and they looked a bit at failure that they've experienced and what they've learned from it, but also characters in the Bible.
Awesome.
Really worth checking those all out. And then at 4, there's a closing session which has some worship, and I've done some closing remarks kind of thing. So yeah, I hope there's kind of a good afternoon. So,
also, if kind of people feel that they that this has maybe triggered something, or they want to talk, is there any way that they can kind of reach out to you guys or anybody on the team to say?
There's 2 ways. First of all, we're going to be on social media kind of all day and ready to chat and afterwards. But also from 4:15, I think we said, our church prayer ministry team are going to be available on Zoom. So I'm going to put the link for that in the live chat of the closing session, or if people want to kind of message and get it, they can. And yeah, I'm excited for that. I think that's such a good opportunity, and from what I know, the way they do it is they'll be around, but then they take people into kind of breakout rooms to be able to pray for them, and we're really grateful that they've been able to do that. But yeah, any questions or discussions or kind of anything, but also, and we'd love to hear your feedback as well. If there's things that we can improve upon for next year, or any really positive stories of things you heard, that would just be amazing. Becca's laughing at me for failing to remember the failure talk.
Because she would have never forgotten that, would she?
If then she wouldn't. It's her husband's doing it, so I do kind of get that. Thank you guys for joining us.
We're excited.
I have to admit that I was really worried that it was just going to be me and Ash sat chatting here, so I'm very grateful that actually, we've had you guys. So yeah, that would be great if Ash would pray for us.
Yeah, guys, we're just going to pray, and then we will allow you guys to be free. So Jesus, we're just so thankful for today, God. I'm just so thankful for all the Resonate team for putting this together. God, even though we cannot meet together in real time, we're just so blessed that you already saw this coming. You already saw this pandemic from when you created the earth. You already put measures in place for people to be reached. And we're just so thankful for that, God. We're thankful for technology, even though it's stressful and inconvenient at times. We're thankful that you can broadcast this into people's homes. And we just want to pray over the things that we've heard, God. And we really pray that you would be stirring something in our hearts, God. And I pray that we wouldn't ignore that. It can be so easy to consume this, and then when the computer is off, to get about our day. And I just really pray that we would have time to reflect and listen into our spirits, God, and see what it is that you're calling us to do with that. I really pray over the next bit, God. I just pray for testimonies that are shared and for seminars that whoever needs to hear, whether it's the one, God, that you would be prompting their spirit, and that you would just really be in the living rooms or bedrooms or gardens of the people that are listening today. So I just want to say thank you. We're so in love with you, and we're so grateful that we get to do this. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Bye guys. Enjoy the afternoon.